When The Winner Takes It All became one of ABBA's biggest hits in 1980, most fans had no idea how painfully real it actually was. Björn Ulvaeus wrote the song while his marriage to Agnetha Faltskog was collapsing, and then asked his ex-wife to sing every heartbreaking lyric herself. Agnetha later admitted it was one of the hardest moments of her life. She wasn't just recording a song. She was reliving the end of her marriage while the whole world listened. But according to Björn, that famous song was only a small part of the pain hiding behind ABBA's success. Behind the smiling performances and global fame, both marriages inside the band were quietly falling apart. And now, after decades of silence, Björn Ulvaeus is finally revealing the truth about the heartbreak, tension, and emotional damage that nearly destroyed everything behind the scenes. The love story that built ABBA. Long before ABBA became one of the biggest music groups in history, Björn Ulvaeus was already deeply passionate about songwriting and performing. In the 1960s, he was a member of the Swedish folk group the Hootenanny Singers, where he first began building his reputation in the music industry. Around the same time, he met Benny Andersson from the Hep Stars, and the connection between them was immediate. Both were obsessed with music, melodies, and songwriting, and they quickly realized they worked perfectly together creatively. Over time, Björn and Benny became inseparable collaborators. They constantly helped each other in the studio, wrote songs together, and quietly dreamed about creating something much bigger than the bands they already belonged to. Still, Björn felt like something was missing in his life personally as well as professionally. That changed completely in 1969. While filming a nostalgic television special, Björn met a young singer named Agnetha Faltskog. She was only 18 years old and still early in her career, but Björn was immediately drawn to her. Agnetha had recently released her first solo hit and already possessed a beautiful voice that stood out instantly. More importantly, she shared Björn's deep love for music and songwriting. Their connection developed almost immediately, and people close to them later described it as genuine love at first sight. Despite the age difference and the fact that Agnetha had far less experience in the industry, the two quickly became serious. Björn believed he had found his soulmate. They dreamed about building a life together centered around music, creativity, and family. On July 6, 1971, they married in the small Swedish village of Verum, with Benny Andersson even playing the organ during the ceremony. For a while, their relationship seemed almost perfect. Björn and Agnetha welcomed 2 children together, daughter Linda in 1973 and son Peter in 1977, while their musical careers exploded at the same time. During those years, Björn and Benny were still working as a songwriting duo known as Björn and Benny, but something still felt incomplete musically. That missing piece arrived when Agnetha joined them, followed by Benny's partner, Annie Fried Lyngstad. Suddenly, the chemistry clicked. 2 couples, 4 talented musicians, and a sound unlike anything else in Europe at the time. Together, they became ABBA. At first, it felt like a dream. The couples were in love, the music was becoming a global sensation, and the group's success seemed unstoppable. But behind the smiling performances and glamorous image, emotional pressure was already beginning to build beneath the surface. Pressure that would eventually tear both marriages apart. Fame slowly destroyed their marriage. Once ABBA officially came together, success arrived almost immediately. Their early single, People Need Love, performed surprisingly well for such a small Swedish label, but everything changed forever after they won the Eurovision Song Contest 1974 with Waterloo. Overnight, the group exploded into international superstardom. Suddenly, Björn Ulvaeus, Agnetha Faltskog, Benny Andersson, and Annie Fried Lyngstad were traveling constantly, performing in sold-out arenas, appearing on television around the world, and watching their songs dominate international charts. Fans everywhere became obsessed with ABBA. The group's fame grew so quickly that their personal lives could barely keep up with it. But while the public saw glamour, success, and smiling performances, pressure was quietly building behind the scenes, especially inside Björn and Agnetha's marriage. One painful moment after Eurovision reportedly stayed with Björn for years. After spending nearly a month away touring and promoting the band, he and Agnetha finally returned home expecting an emotional reunion with their daughter Linda. Instead, their little girl barely recognized them. Björn later admitted how devastating that moment felt. The band needed them constantly, but so did their children, and no matter where they focused their attention, someone seemed to suffer. That conflict slowly began tearing their marriage apart. As ABBA's popularity intensified, normal life became almost impossible. Fans surrounded them everywhere they went, and the pressure of constant fame started affecting Agnetha emotionally. Over time, she reportedly developed severe anxiety and night terrors, sometimes waking up terrified that fans would somehow invade her private life and take away everything she loved. She struggled deeply with the non-stop attention, traveling, and lack of privacy that came with global fame. Björn tried to support her through it all and often became the emotional anchor inside the relationship. But the pressure was affecting him too. Endless touring, recording schedules, media attention, and the impossible task of balancing family life with worldwide fame slowly exhausted both of them. The song that exposed their broken marriage. By the late 1970s, ABBA had become one of the biggest music acts in the world. Their albums were breaking records internationally, stadiums were packed everywhere they performed, and the pressure surrounding the group had become non-stop. Ironically, just as ABBA was reaching its greatest success publicly, Björn Ulvaeus and Agnetha Faltskog were quietly falling apart behind the scenes. Years of touring, emotional exhaustion, constant media attention, and the strain of balancing fame with family life had finally become too much for them to handle. In early 1979, the couple separated, and by 1980, they officially divorced. But because ABBA's entire image was built around chemistry, happiness, and togetherness, they felt enormous pressure to pretend everything was fine publicly. The two repeatedly described it to the media as a happy divorce, even though the reality was far more painful. Instead of openly discussing their heartbreak, the emotions slowly poured into the music itself. That pain eventually became "The Winner Takes It All." Björn later admitted the song was one of the most emotionally personal things he had ever written. While working on the lyrics, he reportedly kept a bottle of brandy beside him the entire time, something highly unusual for him because he normally avoided alcohol while songwriting. In a 2010 interview with The Times, Björn confessed that writing the song affected him differently from anything before. He explained that although writing drunk was usually a terrible idea, it all came out on that one. By the time he finished the lyric, "The gods may throw their dice," the bottle was reportedly empty. But writing the song was only the beginning. The truly painful moment came when Agnetha had to sing it. Standing in the studio, she was forced to perform lyrics clearly inspired by the collapse of their own marriage. Lines like, "But tell me, does she kiss like I used to kiss you?" suddenly carried a devastating emotional weight because everyone knew the history behind them. Audiences could feel it immediately. What sounded like a heartbreaking breakup song was actually two real people publicly reliving the end of their relationship in front of the entire world. And despite the professionalism they showed on stage, the emotional damage did not disappear after the performances ended. Soon after the divorce, Björn moved on and began dating another woman, whom he later married in 1981. Together, they eventually had 2 children. For Agnetha, however, the experience was much harder emotionally. Years later, in her 1997 memoir, As I Am, she admitted the happy divorce story they told the public had been mostly an act. "We always told the media that it was a happy divorce, which of course was a front," she wrote. "Obviously, we all know there are no such things as happy divorces, especially when there are children involved." According to Agnetha, the breakup left her emotionally devastated. She later revealed that she spent a long time in therapy trying to process the end of the marriage, the collapse of the life they had built together, and the painful feeling that Björn seemed able to move forward much faster than she could. The end of ABBA. And the pain they hid. For years, many fans believed Björn Ulvaeus had handled the divorce from Agnetha Faltskog far better than she did. From the outside, he appeared calm, productive, and emotionally in control, while Agnetha openly struggled with anxiety, heartbreak, and therapy after the collapse of their marriage. But according to Björn himself, that image was never fully true. Years later, he admitted the separation affected him deeply as well, though he coped with it differently. Instead of showing his emotions publicly, he buried much of the pain inside songwriting and work. Looking back, Björn explained that divorce was devastating no matter who experienced it. Going through divorce is as difficult as anyone would know who's done it, he admitted. And despite the title of The Winner Takes It All, he later clarified that there had been no real winner between him and Agnetha at all. But there was not one winner in the case of us, he said. The emotional collapse of Björn and Agnetha's marriage affected the entire dynamic of ABBA. At the same time, Benny Andersson and Annie Frid Lyngstad were also going through serious problems in their own relationship. Suddenly, the group built around two couples in love had become emotionally fractured on every level. Although they continued recording music professionally for a short time, the atmosphere inside ABBA reportedly became far heavier and emotionally exhausting. The joy and excitement that once fueled the group slowly disappeared. Björn later reflected that ABBA had experienced an explosive creative period unlike anything they ever imagined, but eventually it simply stopped. One by one, the members began drifting apart until the group officially split in 1982 after nearly a decade of global success. For many fans, it felt like the fairy tale had ended. Yet despite everything that happened between them personally, the members of ABBA never completely lost the creative connection that made them legendary in the first place. Decades later, they reunited again for the 2021 virtual concert project ABBA Voyage, recording new music and creating digital avatar performances that stunned longtime fans around the world. The reunion surprised many people because few believed the four members would ever truly work together again after so many painful years. A later documentary, ABBA, Against the Odds, also explored the group's complicated personal relationships and emotional history behind the music. By then, Björn, approaching 80 years old, spoke openly about how deeply human emotions shaped ABBA's songs from the very beginning. One thing we learned was that everything starts with a song, he explained. I think great music is created from the human experience, deep emotions. For Björn, songwriting became more than entertainment. It became a way to survive heartbreak, regret, love, and loss. And perhaps that is why ABBA's music still connects with millions of people decades later. Björn's life after Agnetha. Not long after his separation from Agnetha Faltskog, Björn Ulvaeus began rebuilding his personal life. In fact, within about a week of the breakup, he reportedly started dating Swedish television presenter Lena Kellersjö, whom many people noticed resembled Agnetha physically. Björn and Lena first met at a New Year's party hosted by fellow ABBA members Benny Andersson and Annie Frid Lyngstad. Their relationship moved quickly, and in 1981, only months after Björn's divorce from Agnetha became official, the couple married. Together, they later had two daughters, Emma and Anna. For decades, Björn and Lena appeared to have a far more stable relationship than his first marriage. They remained together for over 40 years while Björn continued working on music, stage productions, and the enormous global success of projects like Mamma Mia! Even in his later years, Björn remained surprisingly open about parts of his personal life. During a 2020 interview with The Guardian Weekend magazine, he joked candidly about aging and intimacy, saying, "I'm 75, and I can't manage more than 4 times a week." The comment quickly made headlines because of how unexpectedly blunt and humorous it was. But in 2022, Björn and Lena shocked many longtime fans when they announced the end of their 41-year marriage. In a joint public statement, the couple explained that although they had decided to separate, they remained close friends and planned to continue spending time together as a family. After many wonderful and eventful years, we have decided to go our separate ways, the statement read. We remain close friends and will continue to celebrate our grandchildren's birthdays and other family holidays together. Reports later stated that the two agreed to divide their massive fortune, estimated around £100 million, equally. Surprisingly, Björn would soon find love once again. In September 2024, at 79 years old, Björn married for a third time. He tied the knot with his longtime partner, Christina Sass, a Danish executive who had worked with Universal Music Group in Germany during the release of ABBA's 2021 comeback album Voyage. The two reportedly first met in Nuremberg in 2021 and quietly began dating the following year. Björn publicly confirmed their relationship in June 2022 during their first appearance together, explaining to reporters, "We have dated for a while, and I felt like I wanted to take her to this event. So this is the first time we go out together." Their wedding took place in Copenhagen on September 21, 2024, surrounded by close friends and family. The ceremony was officiated by Sandy Toksvig, who had grown close to Björn after collaborating with him on Mamma Mia, The Party, in 2018. Even after decades of heartbreak, divorce, fame, and emotional turmoil, Björn Ulvaeus continued searching for companionship and stability. But for many fans, no relationship in his life would ever be more closely tied to his music or his pain than the one he shared with Agnetha Faltskog during ABBA's unforgettable rise and fall.